Hello? Please let me know that you can see it. Uh, Unfortunately, I have shared my screen and it's supposed to work. Um, okay. Um, oh. Yay! Woo, woo. I'm so excited. Woo. All right, I'm just going to share this one. Okay, let me know if you can see this one. You have PowerPoint? Does everyone have PowerPoint? Now me. Is it on? Okay, I'm going to, it does actually say, Joan, I only have one viewer, so I don't know what that means. Catherine can see it, so that's good. All right, I'm going to start the broadcast because it's been recorded. I'm just going to write to Joan, it's recorded, so can send recording to you. Okay, so I'm going to get started, everyone, on the PowerPoint. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about, thanks, Joan. I'm going to start talking about working with men because, you know, there's challenges of working with men, and we talked about the fact that, you know, men and women's brains are slightly different. So I want you girls to tell me, and if you can write in the chat box, I know it's a little bit delayed, what are some of your challenges when it comes to working with men? I'm going to kind of put it out there. For me, it's very black and white, and I do like that, but sometimes I do find that a bit challenging as well. Tell me what you think. All right, because chat's a bit slow, I might just get them later. So I'm going to do some neuroscience of the male brain. So remember how I talked about in the workshop about the differences, like what we as females in terms of our strengths of the male brain of the brain, but also men have different areas of the brain which, you know, they have things like they have a larger amygdala, so their amygdala is around the fight or flight or risk taking. They also have more grey matter, and the grey matter is that area outside the brain, and they also don't have as many fibres. Oh, okay, so Joan said they don't listen very well to what you were saying. They don't want the detail, just the facts. Okay, and that's due to the fact that we're more language. Women are more in terms of their brain and how it's structured. They're more about language, and that's just from birth. Men are more, you can lose them if you start talking too much because their brains aren't equipped to have so much language. They're also, male brains tend to be more compartmentalized. So we've got 30% more fibers between the left and right hemisphere, meaning we're able to go between the hemispheres more effectively, whereas men tend to stay in one hemisphere at one time. So men tend to sort of think in boxes. So even though they might be, Joan just said that they don't listen, it's not that, yeah, look, I think they give off that perception they're not listening, but it's more around the fact that I think that they're just trying to kind of process. They're very solutions focused. They're very much around results. I just want to hear what were the outcomes. Don't tell me the story. I just want to know the outcomes. So when you start getting into lots of detail with men, they can get a little bit frustrated. So men's strengths in terms of their brain and their neuroscience are around, and I'm happy to share any of these slides with you as well, as they like immediate action. They like to think in boxes. They have a protective aggression as well, and that's just due to evolution, and they're making sure that they protect their young and fighting dinosaurs and things like that. They can be quite territorial as well. Hierarchy matters to them in terms of a neuroscience perspective, so that's why sometimes you find men are very much around status, very much focused on reason and logic. They have systemizing tendencies, and they solve problems differently. They like to solve problems fast. So in terms of leadership for men, and I'm very much around, I think there's actually strengths in the differences between men and women, and them working together can be very complementary. So the male leader is more around figures how things work. They're more risk-taking. They're very solutions-driven, very much around problem-solving, decision-making. They also tend to be specialists as well and have that spatial reasoning. So that's why I like when they tend to be specialists, meaning that they like to think more in boxes. So with women, we're able to access different parts of the brain more easily than men, whereas men tend to be specialists and just focus on a couple of different areas of their brain, and that's why they tend to be specialists, which is really interesting. So I just want to kind of cover off some things around, how can we work more effectively and powerfully with men. It's around, I feel, focusing on you first. It's about your strengths. We actually have female strengths. So remember how I said, and I'm hoping that you remember, maybe this will bring back some insights from the workshop, that we have strengths in terms of a neuroscience perspective around collaboration and empathy and social cohesion, and also intuition. So it's about focusing on, we actually have some remarkable strengths as females, and they are very natural and fantastic leadership qualities to have. We also have this tendency as women to be perfectionists, and it's something that we need to look at, and actually we need to stop. This whole, when is it going to be good enough? And it's something that we need to look at around, and look, and I'm putting my hand up here, it's something that I sometimes can really focus on. It has to be perfect, it has to be perfect, but when is it actually, when is perfect? So I think it's something that we need to watch. Also, it's about really understanding that we actually all are imperfect as well, and actually there's perfection in being imperfect. So I actually am becoming a lot more comfortable with my flaws because I actually focus on my strengths. We actually have a very unique leadership style being women, and we bring a lot to leadership when it comes to things like those things I said around calm under pressure, collaboration, intuition, and also empathy as well. So I think there's a couple of things there I think we need to focus on in terms of focusing on us first and not trying to fit so much into a man's world, but really that confidence piece around what we can bring as a woman to the team or organisation, to the leadership space as well. So I kind of covered these things. A couple of other things around our female strengths as well is, you know, we're calm under pressure. We've got that openness. I mean, these are all really positive, you know, that attention to detail, but they also can be negatives if they're overdone. You know, same with male strengths in terms of, you know, risk-taking and solutions focus. You know, if they're too much overdone and, you know, they can be also negative. So because women can collaborate too much and women can be too open, and we can display just far too much empathy to a point where we're always wanting to take care of others when we forget about ourselves. So it's just little things you need to work, like, to focus on, but these are fantastic female strengths as well. This whole perfectionist thing, it's really interesting. I'm doing a lot of reading in this space around a perfectionist space, and that book that I was talking about, that confidence code around how women, even during schooling, are brought up to do really well at school and perform well at you know, homework and schoolwork, where the boys were out there being, you know, competitive and doing the sports and things like that. I mean, it's a bit of nature and nurture when it comes to women. You know, we're kind of born with this brain where, you know, we're wanting to take care of others, want to make sure that everything's okay, and want to make sure everything's right, but also, you know, in terms of our environment as well, it's probably, with a lot of women that I work with, it's fundamentally the number one thing that I find is that everything has to be perfect, you know, and you don't allow yourself to make mistakes. And in saying that, you can actually learn a lot from making mistakes. And men tend to get over making mistakes a lot easier than women. So in terms of this trying to balance the perfectionist and delivering, is managing your time, setting time frames, setting SMART goals. So SMART means specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And, you know, walking away, if you feel that, you know, it's good enough, walking away from it and saying, okay, you know what, I've done what I can. It is, and in a lot of people's eyes, it's probably great. So, you know, and making sure that you focus on the big picture, making fast decisions. You know, I think because, again, and it's me generalizing here, we are so intuitive, which is great. So I think it's great that we can go with our gut, and intuition has been proven from a neuroscience perspective. It actually does exist in women very strongly. But we tend to hover on decisions as well and ask people, hey, and I do this, ask people for, you know, their opinion. What do you think, instead of trusting ourselves? At the end of the day, leadership is about making decisions. And you know what? If you make a decision and it's not the right one, at least you made a decision. Don't doubt yourself. Just go out there and do it. And it's about getting over your mistakes, you know, and learning from your mistakes. And that's probably one of the greatest lessons I know from my perspective starting this business is, you know, I have had a lot of knocks with this business, but I have just gone, what did I learn from it? Get back up, Sonia. What did I learn from it? I just have to keep going, because I just have to learn from these mistakes. It's the only way I'm gonna grow. And in all the readings I do around this, is I hear so many stories about leaders that will have a female leader walk in and a male leader walk in, produce work, and the manager will say to the female or male subordinate, that wasn't good enough, you know, go back, you know, try again. And the male will always come back with, okay, I've tried again, here you go. But the female will give up. It's like, oh, okay, I give up because it wasn't good enough. And whereas men tend to just go, okay, bang, you know, water off a duck's back, I'm just going to give it another go. So, yeah, it's just an interesting point, something for you to reflect on. Also, when I when we actually talked about leadership, and I gave you the a handout and had the 6 leadership styles, so I really invite you to go back and have a look at those leadership styles. Is have a think about those leadership styles and which leadership style really resonates to you. So this is a bit of homework for you. We talked about Daniel Goleman, and I showed you a quick video of him at the start, and he's the guru of emotional intelligence. And he talks about different leadership styles around being democratic, being pace setting, being affiliative, being coaching, being visionary, or being commanding. I really welcome you to have a look at those leadership styles and reflect and maybe write some notes around what, as a woman, are your strengths, what are your leadership strengths. And a key thing around leadership is that there's no one leadership style that fits all different situations. It's about being able to use different styles with different situation and different people. So you might be working in an environment where you've got, you know, you're working in a really innovative, creative, you know, and it might be that you're using more of a visionary style with your team. You might be working with a relatively new team, and therefore you have to adjust your style where you're coaching them more, you're developing them, giving them guidance. So it's around adjusting your style, but understanding your strengths as a leader and focusing on those female strengths and that leadership style and just adjusting it to where the team is at, okay? It's also about being confident, and I know we spend a lot of time talking about this because it is important, you know, and it's about being assertive, but also being smart as well, you know. If you don't know what you're talking about, just ask questions. Say, hey, you know, this is new information for me. Can I explore it a little bit more? It's about, you know, if you're going into a meeting and it's predominantly men, doing your homework before the meeting and, you know, actually doing some research around, you know, what could the conversation be about. Also setting your limits, setting expectations as well. So if you're actually, for instance, a female leader and working with men or, you know, managing or leading men, actually setting expectations, also looking at how you're physically presenting yourself. So remember how we did that Superwoman pose, you know, putting your hands on the hips and going, I'm Superwoman before you go into a meeting. It's also making sure that you're presenting yourself physically confident. So don't close yourself in when you're actually talking to a man or you're in a meeting with some men. You know, open yourself up. Don't cross your arms across your chest unless you're cold. And research has shown us that men actually respect women who speak their mind, okay? And actually don't wait for an opportunity to speak as well. You know, get straight to the point and make your voice heard. There's so much research around about, you know, the power of women finding their voice and speaking up and actually making statements and comments. But I suppose the only way you get the confidence around that is to do your research and, you know, really be present when you're actually communicating with men or in meetings. And also show how awesome you are. Now, the reason why I decided, you know, this is important in terms of, you know, tooting your horn. I think women tend to be such caregivers, and we're so focused on making everyone else's okay. I don't think we spend a lot of time tooting our horn. And it was interesting this week when I sent out an email to you all, and I had purposely put in the email that Leadership HQ was actually, in terms of this special rankings thing when it came to leadership blogs, in the top 50 leadership blogs. And anyway, I got that email about that Leadership HQ was in the top 50 leadership blogs, and I was so excited. And I thought, you know what? And I'd gone over these slides. I thought, you know what? I'm going to toot my horn because I think it's really awesome for people to talk about the successes and for other people to listen to their successes. And I get a sense in Australia, it must be this tall poppy syndrome. People are a little bit, you know, reserved when it comes to, you know, speaking up about, hey, I did this project last week and this is what happened. It was a great success, or I've won this award. I think go for it. Do it. Toot your horn, because no one else is going to toot it, so you might as well. So you know, and I love supporting other leaders around their successes. So I really encourage and embrace you all doing that as well. Also, it's about helping men thrive, okay? Because remember how I spoke to you about the fact that, you know, they're very competitive. They're, you know, they like to compete, and embrace that. Don't shy away from conflict as well. And that's a difficult one, because, you know, women do find conflict difficult from a neuroscience perspective, but it's about not taking things personally. And it's not about you, it's about, you know, if there is conflict, it's just about having differences of opinions or seeing it through a different lens. Find ways to actually start challenges and competitions as well. I think that, you know, and I actually think all teams like that, you know, challenges and a little bit of competition. Do office sports talk. You know, don't sort of go, oh, you're talking about the football again. Go, oh, yeah, okay, who won last night? Oh, that's pretty cool. And this is just about building relationships and influencing. You know, if you happen to get the paper in the morning, just do a quick skim, you know, on it. I mean, I don't watch much sports, but I try and keep, you know, an eye on what's going on in sports, because I actually work with a lot of men. So if I go into work the day after State of Origin, I try to have a little bit of what went on in State of Origin the night before, because I know that everyone's going to want to talk about that. So I want to make sure that I'm across it a little bit, so I'm able to engage in that sort of conversation. And don't block sports talk as well. Use humour, you know, laugh at yourself. Gosh, there's so many times men will say to me, oh, Sonia, you can be so blonde. And I go, yeah, I know. And I laugh at myself, and I don't take it personally. I go, yeah, whatever, you know, it's good. Us blondes. And so, you know, sometimes you can use, you know, and I've even done, what's the word for it? You know, pranks on people at work as well. You know, I think that can be quite fun. Obviously, if it's, you know, not a nasty prank, a nice prank. Build trust. You know, it's about being caring and transparent with men, and also, you know, looking at coaching, supporting them. You know, think about a sports team. You know, especially if you're leading men, this is really important. You know, if you think of a sports team all have coaches. You know, coaching is a leadership style. You know, men want feedback, so they don't like being micromanaged. And remember that men are outcome focused. They're very goal orientated. Okay, what not to do when it comes to working with men or even managing or leading men. Don't get too personal. So don't sort of go into work and say, oh, I've got to leave early today, and, you know, your male counterparts go, oh, what's going on? You're going, oh, I've got to have a mammogram. Men can at times find that a little bit confronting, so don't get too personal. Office relationships, look, this is always a tricky one, and I suppose, you know, people do meet people in the office, but, you know, especially if you're managing men, it's really important that you make appropriate decisions around this. Keep your office space professional as well. Don't have lots and lots of pictures and teddy bears and like, you know, and I love having things around that are meaningful for me, but, you know, you still need to, you know, you can have a few pictures and things like that, but make sure you keep your office space professional. Don't play office mom as well. Don't use things like, don't call them boys. Don't clean up after them. And also don't make lunches or cookies the night before and bring it in. I know those sort of things are really sweet, but if you actually are managing a lot of men, don't do things that are like too caring and nurturing, which we have a tendency to do. Okay, male management situations. And I know that whether you work with men or whether I know you girls are going to be managing men one day, if you're not now, it's important. Men like feedback. And I mean, everyone loves feedback, but giving men feedback, especially if you're actually leading or supervising them, you might feel a little bit uneasy or anxious around that. You might not, but a lot of leaders that I work with, the fabulous women leaders that I work with that manage men, actually find this a bit of a tricky situation. So in terms of, you know, how I advise them going about it, is making sure that you really prepare in advance and state examples. So don't go in there and give someone feedback. And this would actually even relate to if you're in a leadership role with, working with any gender. But it's around keeping to the point. Don't go into too many stories, but stating examples. Men like to be specific. Just give me a couple examples. State the why. Why is it important that you behave this way? Or why is it important that we want this outcome? Why is it important I need this from you? Ask for his thoughts as well. So, okay, what do you think about what I've just said? And put some action steps in place. It's really important. I find so many leaders, it's a difficult one for them in terms of performance reviews, and I don't think giving feedback to anyone is just at a performance review once or twice a year. I think feedback is a regular occurrence, but it's about preparing. It's really about preparing, planning, setting down what you really want to say and keeping to the facts, okay? And not, remember someone said in the workshop that words are currency. Men just don't get into the detail. Just stick with the facts, state the why, state the examples, and ask what they think. And, okay, what are we going to do moving forward? Also, when it comes to male management situations around being social and networking, and again, it's important when you're in any sort of organisation, or especially when you're in a leadership role, that you're actually networking. It's really important to get to know your team, but in saying that and getting to know your team, you don't want to go out, and go out to drinks with them till midnight every Friday night and, get a little bit tipsy and things like that, because you need to be really aware of your actions because they're looking at you. You really need to set a standard. It's important that you get to know them and get to build a relationship with them, but be aware of your actions and also act and dress well as well. Because people notice these things. And don't be afraid to leave work early. It's funny when I work with women that, work in a male-dominated environment, or that they're actually leading, a team that's predominantly men. They feel that they have to be the last ones to leave because men, they don't have the same circumstances. Again, this is me being general here. Most men, some men, do have, outside commitments that they have to leave as well. But men predominantly don't have to race home and make dinner and things like that, even though they should also help out. As we read in the Lean In book, that, it's important to have a supportive partner, but do feel free to leave early. Like if you've got commitments, then don't sit there and think, what are the men in my team going to think if I'm leaving early because they're staying? Because we do have different kind of lives and time commitments, and it's something, funnily enough, that I've never had an issue with. And I think that's due to the fact that I'm very outcome driven and results focused anyway, and also I suppose in terms of whenever I've ever kind of been in a senior leadership role, when I've worked internally with an organisation, I've always, left work when I needed to, taking care of my family, and then sometimes I don't advocate this, but I've got online when my daughter's asleep just to kind of tidy up a few emails or finish off a few things. And because men are very outcomes driven, it's not about you spending 10 or 12 hours a day at work, it's about what you're actually delivering. So just focus on that. Also negotiating. I mean, women bring actually a different perspective when it comes to negotiating, which I think can be really powerful in terms of men and women working together in negotiating situations, because men tend to be more goal-orientated and results-driven, whereas women can read body language, they're more collaborative. If you kind of put those two together on a team and then negotiating, it can be a really powerful mix. So when it comes to working with men and negotiating with men, make sure you know all the factors, get your facts straight, and know the details. Try and think about their communication style as well and how they like to communicate. And I think that's important to kind of reflect on that before you go into any sort of negotiation with a male. Don't try to please, okay? And again, this is me being general here, but I do work with a lot of fantastic women that really shy away from negotiation because, again, I want to have collaboration. I want to have cohesiveness. You know, I want to make sure they're okay. You know, you don't have to please. Not everyone's going to agree with you, and not everyone's going to like you. You don't have to please everyone. And it is about establishing credibility first. You know, actually, you know, setting the scene around, you know, what your knowledge is, what your skills are, and also getting to that. Try and reach an agreement ASAP as well. Because, again, remember how I said, like, men tend to be very much around focus, results driven. So in terms of moving forward with that, and Bianca's just joined. Sorry, Bianca, we did record it, so you can get a copy of the presentation. I can send you the link to the recording. What were some of your key insights? I'd like you to type some of your key insights around what you learned from that session. So I kind of talked about, I'm just going to quickly go back. I'm hoping that, so we talked about the male brain and what the male brain brings to leadership in terms of, you know, risk-taking, solutions-driven, problem-solving, decision-making, and they tend to be specialists. About how we can best work, it's around focusing on ourselves and not being perfectionists, you know, female strengths and understanding our unique leadership style, our strengths as women, you know, in terms of a neuroscience perspective around openness, intuition, collaboration, you know, trying not to be a perfectionist, managing our time, making fast decisions, getting over mistakes, you know, understanding our unique female leadership style as well. So in terms of, you know, I gave you that handout with those different leadership styles, reflecting on that and thinking about what style you're most comfortable using. You know, really focusing on your confidence as a female leader, because even if you're working in a predominantly male environment, we bring so much in terms of fantastic qualities when it comes to leadership as women. And it's being confident and really feeling empowered in that, because, you know, we do bring a lot to the table. We should be showing how awesome we are. But when it comes to communicating with men, get straight to the point. Make sure your voice is heard. Being assertive. Helping men thrive as well around competition, and doing a little bit of sports talk, using humour, building trust with them through coaching and supporting them as well. You know, not getting what not to do in terms of making sure that you keep your office space professional, don't play office mum and getting too personal. Also, those techniques I spoke to you about around male management situations, around giving feedback and networking and negotiating as well. So there's actually some really good books around this. If anyone wants anything around some more, you know, insights or knowledge around how to work more effectively with them, let me know. So what were some of your key insights from that webinar? What's shit? So all right, guys, I'm going to send the recording to you.